Surely the presence of joy, peace, and love. Joyce, peace, and love. You know what I mean, is in this place. And there is at least one more important presence here. There's more than one, but one that I want to mention, life. One of the major benefits of singing that song, or any song for that matter, is the fact that in order to sing it with sufficient volume, you have to breathe in. And then you can sing with as much volume as you wish. And then you have to remember to exhale so that you can breathe again. We must breathe, consciously breathe in to do that. But without that quick, deep breath, we can't very well make our voices be heard. And life itself demands that we breathe regularly, constantly, and mostly we're unaware that we're doing it. But while here, we invite you to breathe consciously. Breathe it in and breathe it out. That also relaxes you a whole bunch. While singing or exercising or laboring, we are more fully aware of our breath and how important it is to us. Let's be thankful for our breath. While here, please feel free to both inhale and exhale. It'll do you and all of us good, and you are in good company. And so it is.
Good morning. I had a talk all prepared going into Mother's Day, and then a whole bunch of life happened. And so I had given a talk at a recovery convention on the topic of spiritual awakenings. And wrapped around Mother's Day, which is when I was supposed to give the talk, one of the things that kind of resonated for me, that part of the idea of a spiritual awakening is kind of like giving birth. Bless the men who are close enough to us to participate in that or get to be graced with that. Those of us who have given birth know about that process. And for family and friends who may not have had that, hopefully you've gotten close enough to see it. Awakening for me is somewhat like, it's like that birth process. There's a god-awful, very painful compression and increasing pain to a level men cannot even imagine, okay? And when you're in it, you think, oh my God, and cuss that fool, and anybody within arm's reach, and you're gonna grab anybody that you can. And then when the baby comes out, all of that's forgotten. There's that bliss and that beauty of this child coming in, right? Just the glory of that new creation, and you forget all the pain. Spiritual awakenings. Well, for a bit, it's just, I used to milk the cow, and you get kicked by the cow, and you feel it really hard for about 2 or 3 weeks, and it decreases after a bit. It happens. Awakened has become so popular in our consciousness that it actually has a definition now. Spiritually aware of the universe and its direct metaphysical connection to one's being and the connection it has to all life's forces. Deepak Chopra says awakening happens when you are no longer living in a dream world where you filter everything through your ego and focusing on the future and the past. Instead, you have an almost simultaneous awareness of your individual self and the connection between that and everything else. There's terms that speak of what happens after nirvana, enlightenment, awakening. I like transcendence, and I'll come back to that. What seems to bring it on? There's huge life events and smaller ones. There's a dissatisfaction, or just all of a sudden you're taking notice of something going down, and everything you believed up to now has got to change, right? So some of the signs that you're going through it. One, observe those patterns. The first step of awakening is an awareness followed by an impulse towards change. Two, feeling a sense of connection. How I see that in life is being of service. You know, the things, when they asked me to be a member of the church, we were asked to give of our time, talent, thought, and treasure. They didn't say give it here. We give. We show up. We do things for others. Being of service, volunteering, a heightened awareness of others and the planet, and that's not just other two-leggeds, that's all creation. Perhaps that manifests by ecology and a consciousness in your practice of how you walk in life. Maybe you choose not to eat, animal products anymore, or maybe you choose not to have plastic-based laundry soap, however that works. 3, letting go of attachments. Self-belief and identity doesn't matter as much. The outward things, I drive a Lexus, or I have this job, your descriptions of what family, friends, and society has fed you, and also what you fed yourself. I'm smart, I'm a vegan, I'm yogi, I am whatever political party, I'm an activist, I am whatever your job title is, how you identify. 4, finding inner peace. When things go badly, it's a temporary setback, not the snowball of an avalanche of anger, frustration, and despair. Just because somebody cut you off in traffic doesn't mean your whole day needs to go sideways. 5, intuition increases. You might see yourself connected on a more regular basis in a way that you weren't before, tapping in. 6, synchronicity. Every Sunday, somebody up here says, look how we're all connected. We didn't get together and talk ahead of time about what the topic was, but we all seem to be in sync. 7, an increased compassion and self-compassion, self-kindness, and a sense of common humanity and mindfulness. How I've seen compassion and that deepened is that I deserve to treat myself at least at the same level I would treat a total stranger. Oftentimes the language up here treats me far less than I would do to someone I care about or somebody I don't even know. 8, removing fear of death, and fear in general is my note on that. We live in the present and we don't regret the past any longer. So therefore, because we're not afraid of what's coming and we're not all hung up in the rearview mirror, get to really, really enjoy and it being here and now. 9, there's an increased authenticity. Being yourself is your most appealing trait. Knowing it's not your job to please others, to avoid stating unpopular opinions, or needing to tread gently around the way others choose to feel is attractive and secure to be around. And the last one, flourishing. You have positive, there's this list that the psychologists use, positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. You tend to thrive in all areas of your life when you have spiritual awakening going on. And these manifest throughout everything. So what it looks like when you've gone through this, though, is when we've achieved a different state of how we view the world. I look upon that kind of like the eagle's view. You've climbed up out of the sewer pond, and now you're flying above it. It looks really beautiful, wonderful, and magnificent from that new and different perspective. But you're up there alone because everybody you were just with is still hanging out where they're comfortable. Okay, and so there's a really uncomfortable, like that birthing process, there's an uncomfortable phase while you're up there in this new, wonderful state and you got nobody to share it with. Trust me, they're coming. So transcendence is a rising above. You know, one of these theater companies in the county that I just really love has that in their title. There's a clearness up there with the eagle's view, and it's wonderful and marvelous with a consciousness altered from before. And just know in your heart, as I've known as I've gone through these life changes, that your tribe will soon be with you. When you have this different consciousness, you have a magnetism that draws them to you. They're coming. You're only in that uncomfortable transition place for a little bit. They're on their way. Thank you. Namaste.
Well, that was my main message today. Thank you, Sabrina. You'll see that there is some synchronicity between what she came up with and what I'm going to talk about later on. Let's see, announcements. Ladies' book study group is the 21st, 23rd, right next door in the hall, and that's from 10 till noon. And while it's mostly or all ladies at the moment, I'm sure they'd welcome any gentleman in, as long as you're a gentleman. I wanted to mention, have any of you seen this issuance of the Sonoma County Gazette? If you haven't, you might want to get your hands on one, and there is one out there in the foyer, because on page number 39, there is an article entitled Cotati Heart and Soul, the Cool Building on West Sierra and Page, and it's a 2-column interview and information about Patrick McCarty, our minister, and about what we do here at Church of the Oaks. So it's a very enlightening message, and this apparently comes out every month. It's a free gazette, and you'll find it in various restaurants and stores around Cotati especially. So there is one on the back if anybody's interested in seeing it before you leave. All right, Natalie's Healing Circle is this Sunday at 7:15 right here, 7:15 p.m. Every Sunday for the month of June for sure, and then we'll figure out whether there's more coming in July. All right, Community Cabaret, again, we're having it on what day is that? That's the last Saturday.
25th or 26th.
25th or 26th, well, I can be more specific than that. I'll check my handy dandy telephone calendar. The last Saturday of this month is, in fact, the 25th of June. And it's going to be Lori B. and the Jazz Pack, who is a very, very good outfit. So we ask each of you to come and bring your friends and your family. And it's a Saturday night. You bring your own foods. You just have a good time. Let's see, June 26th, then, the very next day, I guess, is potluck right here. And after church, some of us bring foods, and there's always enough to share. So if you come and forget to bring something, don't worry. You'll still be welcome, and you'll have enough to eat. And so will the rest of us. Are there any other announcements that I've failed to mention? Yes, sir.
The pancake breakfast.
You're right, I failed to mention that one. That's on July 9th.
And we're still looking for volunteers.
We are looking for volunteers, and in fact, I thought I should have, and I probably did. Thank you very much, Patrick. I brought this sign-up sheet, and I'm going to put it in the foyer as we leave, and if you can help us out on the 8th, 9th, or the 10th. On the 8th in the late afternoon, we're going to be doing some initial preparation. On the 9th itself, some of us appear at 5 a.m. We need a bunch of volunteers at 6 a.m. and then a bunch more at 8. So if you can be there at any of those hours, please sign up. You'll see on here that there is various hours for you to sign up in. I will be here the whole time. Patrick will be here most of the time. And a couple of the other folks are going to be here a long time as well. So remind me to put this back there before we leave, and you get a chance to sign up. And you have, in fact, another sign-up sheet for me.
I have the list of those who already signed up. I typed it up for you.
Okay, so will you put that back there as well? Thank you. No more announcements, apparently.
Just a reminder that the food barrel's in the hall, and in the past, we generally have a reminder during potluck to add to it. But you can add to it at any time. Thank you.
So it's a big round barrel.
Big round barrel for NOAA, Neighbors Organized Against Hunger, and the food that goes in the barrel doesn't go to the Greater Redwood Empire Food Bank. It goes right here into our community.
So that's a local organization, so that's worthwhile our supporting, and we've been doing it for years.
For a long, long time.
And
Right now, the food banks are running a little bit short, so it's a good time to add in.
Yes, so be sure to bring some canned goods and such. Okay, it's time to breathe deeply again, inhale and exhale while we stand up and sing, "Oh, What a Beautiful Morning," number 28 in the songbook.
There's no
brings a crackling haze on the meadow. The corn is as high as an elephant's eye, and it looks like it's climbing clear up to the sky. Oh, what a beautiful morning! Oh, what a beautiful day! I've got this beautiful feeling, everything's going my way. All the sounds of the earth are like music. All the sounds of the earth are like music. The breeze is so happy it got me some tree. And an old weeping willow is laughing at me. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a beautiful feeling, everything's going my way. Everything's going my way.
Coordination. Oh, we don't, we only have the two. All right, while you're still standing, this is the time when we greet each other as appropriate. Some of us like to hug or shake hands or just acknowledge. So do whatever's comfortable for you. Enjoy. Do you have an actual copy of this at home?
I do. This morning I went to a different store.
Oh, that's right.
I actually think you should transcript that down.
It is.
Yeah.
We have a number like that.
I know, I just, I don't think it's yeah.
We're talking about. I think it is.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah.
For the benefit of the new person who happens to be here with us this morning, we're glad to see you. Thank you for showing up. I will explain a little bit more about what we do at this point, celebrating our abundance. We don't pass the basket during the service, but we do have a basket in the back of the sanctuary, and some of our folks regularly put their donations into that basket for the benefit of the church. But some of us who cannot be here every Sunday, we make possible for our banks to send money automatically to the church treasury, so that even if we don't show up, the church still has an ongoing source of funds. I'm pleased to report, I'm the treasurer, by the way, here. I'm pleased to report that although our first 4 months of this year, the expenses exceeded income, during May of this year, income exceeded expenses, and we're on the right track again. So way to go, keep up the good work. We realize that financial support of the church, though, is only one way for us to help support everything that we're doing as a church community. It's one way that we express our gratitude for all the abundance that each of us has in our life. But in many ways, we are so grateful for the abundance of love and caring that we give and receive to each other. And there's so much other abundance in our community, both here and at large. Let's read together the celebration of abundance that you'll find in the middle of your order of service, right after it says, celebrating our abundance. Come along with me. Isn't it ironic how the darkness that encompasses the life of one who has lost everything can actually be the illumination of our awareness of the vast abundance we have and the countless ways in which we may share that abundance. Let's ponder that while we hear a piano interlude. Now, in preparation for our usual Sunday practice, we will sing just the one verse, the second verse of our opening song, Surely the Presence, number 35 in the songbook.
Morning. Just before we get into the main practice, take a moment to put your hand on your high heart, where that holy truth resides. Recognizing that this is your true self, this part that's always whole. Nothing you've ever done or could ever do will ever diminish that part of you, that true self, in any way. Having set that ground, what came through for today's practice was to feel into and learn from the energy of trees, which of course are greener at this time of year than ever, with the sun and the rain conspiring. And this place is called the Church of the Oaks after the trees you see from the street, but perhaps not everyone here knows the story of this building, this sanctuary, which was built from one stand of redwoods owned by an early board member over 100 years ago. It was lovingly transported from up near Boonville, I believe, down here, milled and turned into this beautiful building. I feel that the energy of those trees is still very much present here. Just like when you walk into Armstrong Grove or Muir Woods, there's this immediate sense of peace, stillness, and presence. So let's, from that place, enter into a meditation. But before we do, I want you to just notice that there's a beautiful ball of light floating in the ceiling. It's a golden color with a leaf green woven through it. This is the intention that we all brought at a spiritual level for today's service. It's holding the service from start to finish, but also especially this practice, uniting us as one in this intention. As you notice that light, feel how it taps in to your heart, how you can tap into it to feel healing energy more strongly. We're going to now allow that light to flow down through our feet into the earth, meeting there the nourishing, living waters. As we visualize our feet turning into roots that reach deep within our Mother Earth, and draw that cool, cleansing water up through every aspect of our being. As that flow strengthens, we now notice above us this beautiful, powerful golden light from the spiritual sun, flowing down through our tree leaves of our being, becoming food that nourishes us in just the way we need right now. As that food flows down the trunk of our being, it meets the water in the middle, at the heart, at your heart. They then mix together with joy. And that mixture contains everything you need to claim your wholeness right now. Just let it continue to flow through you. Let it carry away anything you no longer need. Let it fill any space that's left with the light of your divine self. Notice how this brings you into the present moment. Just like walking into a grove of old-growth redwoods. Know that you can do this meditation anytime to ground yourself, both above and below, into the glorious now. Continue to let that energy flow for another minute or two. And if you wish, as you do so, you can set an intention to go back and practice this again. And even when you're not able to meditate, sit and meditate, you can intend to just be aware of that flow in the background. In meditation, you simply bring it into the foreground, but it is always there. I'm just thanking that light for being there for you today, sealed in trust and faith. Amen. Sealed in trust and faith. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Natalie. You didn't put me to sleep, but you didn't get me all energized either. I'll have to do that myself. Well, here I am again, up here at the pulpit. It wasn't that long back I was here as a substitute for our minister, Patrick Michael McCarty. Patrick does so much in our community here, the church, and in Cotati community and Sonoma County community, that he gets up to here sometimes and things that he has to do. And so he asked for, and I agreed to give him another day off, and I would sit in for him. I'm pleased to be able to step in and help out. I've told you before from this pulpit how it was difficult for me to originally engage in public speaking when I first was absolutely required to do so. I had just been hired as the lead instructor for the collection division of the Internal Revenue Service Training Center in San Francisco, California in 1981, 82, somewhere around there. I was a young man in those days. When I arrived at the IRS Training Center on that famous street in San Francisco that eludes me at the moment, on Haight Street, I was welcomed by the training center administrator who immediately suggested that being as I had just gone through instructor training school and arrived here when there was a revenue officer training class going on, why don't I step in and take over the teaching slot on penalties and interest? Oh, what a grand idea. I hadn't dealt with penalties and interest since I was an active tax collector in the streets of San Francisco 4 to 5 years earlier. Since then, I'd been in management. Management doesn't have to compute penalties and interest, but we expect our employees to. So I hadn't dealt in that, and so I started preparing. And it didn't take me very long to realize I was lost and that I was not going to be able to do this in a way that satisfied anybody. So unbeknownst to me and anyone else, I somehow made myself sick and I could not even show up to work, let alone teach that class. But I also knew that somebody had already prepared to teach that slot, so I felt guilty, I felt bad, I felt fear, I felt shame, but somebody else was going to handle it, and I felt relief as well. And then, of course, serendipity happened, and the entire federal budget got canceled, or got wiped out for some strange political reason, and they canceled all future classes for the rest of that fiscal year. I did not have to teach. So it was a relief, and it allowed me to regain myself and be able to teach when the time came a few months later. And now, of course, I've developed the ability to speak and to actually enjoy it and not fear it. And even if I did happen to fear something, so what? I can get through that now, I know. So I have a story to tell you of a recent public speaking engagement that I had. Some of you here know that Sabrina is a member of the Roanoke Park Chorale, and some of you also know that I rejoined the chorale a few months back so that I could help perform at the Memorial Day concert coming up. So there's a very small group at the moment. They're like Church of the Oaks. They're tiny, but mighty. We had 9 voices, and we really belted it out when we had to. The chorale was invited to sing 2 songs at the Memorial Day celebration at the community center on Monday, May 30th. I believe we did a credible and at times incredible job. But that's just the background for what I want to talk about today, because at that same program on Memorial Day, I had been asked to provide both the opening invocation and the closing benediction. Well, that's because they tried to get a few clergy people to come and do that, and none of them were either available or interested. And so I guess they were pretty hard up, because a member of that organizing committee knew that I had given prayers at the opening of our local SIR branch luncheons, Sons in Retirement, SIR. So he said, well, would you be willing to give the invocation and the benediction? Well, I've had all this experience, and I love public speaking, and I feel like I'm a competent wordsmith. So I said, sure, why not? After all, I'm going to be there with the chorale, so what could go wrong? So I prepared and wrote out 2 short paragraphs, really only about 3 sentences apiece, maybe 4. But then I decided I wanted to add something to the invocation before we started. So I wanted to include a moment of silence to honor the memory of those children and teachers lost in Uvalde, Texas, just 6 days earlier. The audience of 80 to 100 people, I think that's about right, was very attentive as I strode to the podium after being introduced by the moderator. So I glanced at the audience, I glanced at my notes, and began by saying, before I begin the invocation, please join me in a moment of silence to honor the memory of. That's about as far as I got. And I did this. At that moment, I had to pause. My eyes filled with tears, and my voice broke with a sob. Whew. It's a repeat performance, folks. To honor the memory of the 19 children and 2 teachers. More pausing, more tears, another sob, in Uvalde, Texas, who lost their lives to unimaginable gun violence. Well, I intended at that point to have a moment of silence. I asked them to have a moment of silence, but I couldn't be quiet from that point on. I had to continue. So I gathered myself and actually gave the invocation that recognized the sacrifice of the men and women who had died in the service of our country in the U.S. military. Most of the rest of that morning was somewhat of a blur for me, but I was able to get through the 2 songs that the chorale sang without incident, though I was probably singing too loudly. I can't wait to hear what Karen, our leader, has to say to me about that. But soon after, the band played rousing music, and we strolled along the Avenue of the Flags, and then we had a guest speaker give a rousing speech. It was time for the benediction. Well, I was particularly proud of a turn of phrase that I intended to use during the benediction when I asked for divine assistance, as follows. We pray that the future for all of us who remain will include a lessening of the need for forces of arms and an expansion of the use of open arms in the offer of peace, harmony, and love with all others. We thank you, God, for helping all of us to deliver that peace, harmony, and love. And so it is. Amen. I got through it. Well, I guess my emotional moments during the invocation were either forgotten or forgiven, because at the end of this benediction, I heard a smattering of applause. Must have been Sabrina. I have to admit that I was pleased by that. And since then, I've learned something else about that experience from an article in our local paper written by columnist David Brooks, who was quoting various online advice givers. This one truly resonated with me and probably came from Brené Brown, who said, if you're giving a speech, be vulnerable. Fall on the audience and let them catch you. They will. Some of you here are probably familiar with Brené Brown. I wasn't. I had not heard of her before, so I went online to find out what I could about her. And it turns out she's been online for a long time, well over 10 years, in books, on TED Talks, on YouTube. And I was particularly interested in what she had to say in her TED Talk entitled The Power of Vulnerability, which would never have occurred to me that there's power in that. It occurs to me now. In that talk, Brown suggested all of us need to feel that we are connected, and that we cannot have that feeling if we believe we are not good enough, which may lead us to conclude that we are not worthy of love and belonging and can create fear and shame. When that happens, we tend to numb our emotions, but we cannot numb selectively. We cannot numb only those that we want to, like fear and shame and hate and anger. We wind up numbing all of them, even those we prefer to maintain and retain. When we do that, we definitely feel disconnected from others, maybe from ourselves, and most likely from the divine. And we tend to become less compassionate and more certain or dogmatic in our opinions and our beliefs. Her studies indicated that those who have accepted their worthiness exhibit the courage to be imperfect. They demonstrate compassion for themselves and others, and they create a connection that comes from being their authentic self. When we accept our real selves as worthy of love and belonging, we let our true selves be seen, and we practice gratitude and conclude that I am enough. We embrace our vulnerability. So again, Brene Brown said to me, if you're giving a speech, be vulnerable, fall on the audience and let them catch you, they will. Well, they did. Without even trying during that Memorial Day invocation, I became extremely vulnerable, and I certainly fell onto the audience. And at the end of that benediction, they not only caught me, they set me upright. The applause was a surprise and very welcome, but even more so was the praise given to me afterwards by a few members of the audience individually, one especially, a former mayor of the city of Rohnert Park, who was most effusive in his comments. It surprised me. Perhaps as a former politician, though, he has often enough put foot in mouth and had to recover from it and knew that's how you learn. And so I really appreciated the words from him. So, did I learn anything from that experience? You bet. I learned a lot. I learned the value of preparation. I learned the humility that comes from making mistakes in front of other people. I learned, again, the need to be forgiving of myself. I learned the confidence that builds from moving through and learning from mistakes. And I learned that, like I already knew, most people are very decent and caring. Maybe one of the major things I learned was the recognition that you do not have to be perfect when you are attempting to be of service. The fact that you are attempting something positive is a reflection of perfection. A reflection of perfection, if not perfection itself. That was not the first time that I've become emotional while speaking. And I suspect it won't be the last. In fact, it wasn't. I became emotional again this morning. But now I've learned that it's okay to be vulnerable and let others see the depth of who I really am. And I learned once again what I've known for quite a while now, that I can count on the fact that the divine is present in all people and in all situations. So help me God. Namaste. I think it's time to sing a song.
There's an error on the ordered service. It's actually on page 25.
You're kidding me. Let there be peace on earth. Thank you. Stand.
Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace and time.